Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Hi, I'm Tony. Live in Toronto from Community Service Radio on Bathurst. I think Bathurst Avenue, not street. I'm terrified of camera lenses and microphones. And I don't know if anybody's watching this right now, but I'm going to play a bunch of records today with, I don't know if there's a theme. It might make itself clear to me as we go, but we'll find out. Right now we're listening to the glorious sounds of Public Image Limited from their second record, Metal Box, or second edition, one of my cherished belongings. I believe this song was entirely recorded by the recently deceased guitar player and genius Keith Levine. It's called Radio 4. It's a really bizarre metallic symphonic track. Anyways, I'll stop talking for now. Right now, you will hear the first track off this record called Realization by Eddie Henderson. If you're a fan of electronic jazz from the late 60s, the early 1970s, you might be familiar with this record. At the very least, you will be familiar with this sound. And what a sound it is. This features, I think, pretty much the entirety of the Mwandishi Band, who was a group of musicians that involved and revolved around Herby Hancock's ideas in the early 70s. This record's from 73. If you're listening on headphones, I should say, you will notice that there are two drummers playing right now, panned one in each ear. Listen. The one in my left, at least, is playing some crazy stuff through a weird flanger or phaser or something. This definitely follows the kind of blueprint that was set out by a guy named Miles Davis a few years earlier with Bitches Brew. Miles, along with the producer Teo Macero, were definitely toying with some very avant-garde ideas, bringing things like musique concrète, tape splicing, the emerging kind of technology afforded to them by, you know, the new movement of synthesizers and stuff. If you listen to this record or any of those records, you're going to hear Fender Rhodes being processed through ring modulators and wah-wah pedals, fuzzed out guitars, wah-wah on trumpets. It's really wild stuff. You can really hear the trace roots of the DNA of jungle and drum and bass in this stuff. Just listen to those drums. Even though I started off with a bit more of a, I don't want to use the word ambient, let's say an atmospheric, beatless track from the end of Metal Box by Public Image Limited, they, along with many of their peers in the so-called post-punk movement, were definitely following the blueprint set out by Eddie Henderson, the Mwandishi group, Miles Davis, Teo, in that they were marrying these kind of out there, very avant-garde ideas with groove-based music in such a fascinating way. I don't know why I'm so attracted to this kind of music, but yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, you couldn't hear me. No, your audio feed is not broken, I said. This is the sounds of Le Voyage by Pierre Enri. One of the early forefathers of, I guess you could say, electronic music. One of the early practitioners. This is a very strange record that is a concept album based off of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, if my memory serves me right. This copy is kind of heavily used and played, so there's a lot of noise and crackle, which adds to the effect that I'm trying to deliver, at least, or the message I'm trying to deliver. Pierre Enri and his, let's say his associates or his comrades working with tape and early synthesizer stuff definitely set the tone for the track that we heard before that and the one I'm about to play, in that they were redefining how you would compose a piece of music, using recording as raw material as opposed to the other way around, where a recording would kind of capture or shape the essence of a composition. This kind of sounds like Actress, Basic Channel even. Kind of. Now this is Cabaret Voltater, and right off the bat, it's crazy how much this sounds like the track that played before that, from Realization. I guess this is what I was referring to when I said that there was something going on in the water over there in England, in the late 70s, when you had all of these acts just taking cues from, krautrock and German groups like Neu and Can, and producers like Connie Plank and Miles and Teo and Herby, and just combining this very surreal collage approach to production with grooves. This track is crazy. It's called Gut Level.
What should do and so on. I think those kind of things are altruistic behavior. Let them.
The artwork or the record sleeve was actually done by Futura 2000, who you may or may not know as one of the early pioneers or practitioners of New York street art or graffiti. He had a very crazy psychedelic approach to his painting, and I highly recommend looking into it. Very beautiful. Look at it.
Clearly his whole body.
It's very cool to hear what sounds like either an 808 or a 606, maybe a 606 drum machine, with this shortwave radio collage where, I don't know, aleatory music, is that the word? Where you're leaving things to chance and you're kind of plugging a shortwave radio into a mixing board through a delay unit and just scanning through and pressing record. It's all tied together with the drum machine now. Very cool. So this is Praxis on the Celluloid label. This is Bill Laswell, who, once again, like everybody else, there seems to be a theme emerging here, which is the sort of music that followed in the wake of Miles Davis's late 60s music, in that it's groove-oriented music that is somehow smashing up and colliding against avant-garde composition techniques from the 20th century, which is pretty cool. Listen to this. This is from 1984. The Cabaret Voltater track from before this was from 83, but they're definitely on a similar wavelength in that they're both rocking the drum machine. This sounds like a DX drum machine, I don't know. But layering on top some kind of bizarre collage that has, in this case, record scratching from, I think, DST, who I also think played or scratched on Herby Hancock's Rocket. But they both seem to be tapping into the same kind of, I don't know, energy or feeling about the future. They both do seem to present some kind of a view of what the future of music could have sounded like, and kind of did end up sounding like for a minute. Crazy stuff. Amazing. If you're not into Bill Laswell yet, you should look him up. Way too vast of a topic and discography to get into here. One of the greatest. He was a bass player. He is a bass player. I don't know why I'm talking about him in the past tense. He's still active. I do believe he was going through some kind of trouble recently and needed some help. If you're able to help Bill Laswell out, you should. I don't know what he's like as a person, but I'm grateful for his music. It's sometimes hard to forget, but you know, hip hop is avant-garde music. Sampling is an avant-garde art form. It's collage. It's dependent on pre-existing materials colliding together to create something new. And I think that if you focus in on listening to the early electro records, anything that used this technology from the time, you really are listening to some pretty crazy experimental music. And since we've been talking about him so much, I had to put on a Herby Hancock record. I feel like a university professor. This is an amazing track. Keeping with our theme, heavy on the groove. That's a Lynn drum you're hearing, and keeping it steady. It's the Brothers Johnson on bass and guitar. And that crazy whee sound you're hearing is Adrian Belew on guitar, who you may or may not know as the guy who I think fronted King Crimson for a minute in the early 80s, but also played on Remain in Light with the Talking Heads. Played with many people and has some pretty cool music out on Island Records, which is cool. I'm not sure if Rocket came right after this record or if there was one more in between, but this is from 81. I think Rocket was from 83. But you can hear it emerging. It's just kind of like cybernetic funk, or the cyber funk continuum that we're exploring here. There's something about this time, the 80s, even the early to mid 90s, where technology still seemed to like promise some kind of utopia. I don't think it turned out that way. Do you? What fascinates me so much about hearing this stuff is that you're really hearing mankind and machine working together. And I think the boundaries are quite clear between who's doing what. It seems like now we've got machines trying to act more human than human, and human beings trying to act like machines. I don't know if that makes sense or if that's even something I believe in. It just kind of came out of my mouth, but maybe. We're already over the halfway mark here, and I've played like 3 songs. I don't know if I'm talking too much or if I just want to hear these songs for too long, but we'll move on in a moment, I promise.
Rolling writer, for the top reciter with the paper on the table. I'm not your average fighter. Incredible to see, for you to judge agree that I'm loaded with finesse. My style relate the best, but redundant to the facts. The perv, I'm not whack as a cruise upon the hill. The Bronx and Montevideo, while the envy looking stand. The bowl shake my hand. Yes, it's time to get heated. Park the green sedan. Now it's all about her. Her friend I would prefer. The kids much respect because they call me sir. You're the famous rhyme teller, mind the drill dweller, provision. You are indeed a fortune teller, palm reader, and defeater. Frankly, through your tweeter, my perpetual game to make you feel shake. Perhaps some brain competition.
The Ultramagnetic MCs, my friend. Cool Keith, Said G. This is an early demo.
The temple of this party will always affect my phrases and
the original Lab House demo, to be specific.
And make it crash your hands as regardless to the thought. There is no garbage cans, make it shake. Boogie down.
It's crazy how this kind of sounds like Suicide or something.
Devastator. I'll make it shake.
Make it shake.
Just absolutely crude. So raw. So electrifying. Listen to the drum machine. It sounds like it's trying to jump at you.
At a megawatt level, bold to kill the devil with eximious reading against myself competing. It's the wizard of the world, rough and stampeding. Every biting ear tapper, parasiting rapper would evacuate the town, descend and drop down whereas
it's frying. It's cooking.
Analyzing tutor, a program computer when I'm drilling in your brain. My job at Roto-Rooter is forming incision, slicing and division, and commoding every nerve with language to serve as the basic fundamental.
Cool Keith does not get the love he deserves. Ultramagnetic MCs as a group either.
Express, make the shade. Make down.
Now the steady be controlling your ears now, going with the flow of the voice. You thought this sound was lost, but it's back tooting quick. Effects with steady ticks, implicating, frustrated, and administrating new standards in that said G is demonstrating, imposing to your brain, discreet and not the same. Methods and skill I display up on stage, explosive. I'm loaded, my style is so devoted to slaying other rappers, the ones the skill lackers, extremely gifted. I'm made so prolific that my syllables are chosen, made to cause erosion. Damage ourselves in mind, I cause explosion, astonish the crowd. Me and my pal, who keeps that G. I'll make you shake.
Make you shake.
Make you shake.
Make you shake.
Devastator. I'll make you shake.
Make you shake. Make you shake. Make you shake. Make you shake. Make you shake. Make you shake.
This album cover kind of says it all. Light Years Away by Warp 9, an early electro group. Pretty sure they were from New York. Heavy on the science fiction. Lots of whizzing and whirring around. And just the nastiest 808 drum groove you've ever heard. It's a perfect blend of science and funk. And that's all I care about, science and funk. I gotta see what year this is. It's making me think about something. Let me check. '83. Same year as what we're assuming Rocket was and that Cabaret Voltater track. There was something going on in 1983. Maybe it was the quick approaching 1984 calendar year, which was supposed to be scary. I don't know if it actually was. It says on the sleeve that this was produced by Jelly Bean Benitez. I don't know if that was referring to this specific dub mix that we're listening to or the actual track, which has more vocals. I don't think there are any vocals on this one. There's so much space in between every hit. Listen to that. You know, the advent of the 12-inch single, which I believe kind of came straight out of a mistake in the mid to late 70s. I think Tom Moulton, the remixer, maybe had the first remix that was I'm mixing up my facts here. Something happened in the 70s where a single track was pressed incorrectly on a 12-inch format, and that kind of opened up the possibilities, like a big bang for dance music, where suddenly you had a lot of time to kind of expand and wig out with production. Hence this 9-minute dub version of this Warp 9 track, which is just an 808 drum machine so far with a couple of stabs. Does that not sound exactly like a science theme for some kind of a science show when you were a kid in the 90s? If you were a kid in the 90s, I was, and it reminds me of a song. You know what I'm saying. It's the sound of science fiction, baby. I'm going to cut over to another 808 beat track, essentially. We're going to move from New York to Chicago, traversing the cyberfunk continuum with Tony Price on Community Service. Go Wild Rhythm Tracks by Virgo. It can get confusing with this Virgo stuff in Chicago because there were several people using that name. But this was produced by Vince Lawrence, the one and only. Quite possibly I'll just say it, he might be the founding father of house music. At least as a recorded art form, not so much as a culture. That belongs other places. Or that title belongs to other people, I should say. If this kind of thing interests you, and if you're a nerd like me, there's a great series of interviews hosted by Maurice Joshua on YouTube. I can't remember the name of the series, but he's interviewing all of the still surviving foundational figures of house music. And the Vince Lawrence interview is amazing. He really likes to drive home and remind people throughout the interview that Chicago house was an experimental art form. It was influenced by experimental music as much as it was by funk and soul coming out of America. But he'll remind you over and over the course of that interview how influential Fad Gadget was on his sound, how people were grooving out to Gary Newman records in the clubs right beside Teddy Pendergrass records. And he laments the fact that it isn't remembered in that way. Which is a shame. And I can see why. Thinking too much, I messed that one up. Good thing I'm in a booth on a sunny day with no one dancing. Oh yes. Now I can understand the concern that house music may have somewhere along the way lost its experimental edge, at least in the more mainstream developments of what happened with the genre. But I can assure you with the utmost certainty that that energy is still alive and well in 2025. And what you're hearing is a prime example of that. This track is called Lost Era 707, and it's by a man known as Pork Chop. I've never met Pork Chop. He's got a lot of crazy music. Recent crazy music. Very psychedelic, and again, keeping in line with our travels through the cyberpunk continuum, as we're now calling it. Again, the marriage of very out there avant-garde ideas with regards to production, marrying itself to groove. Been very obsessed with this idea of psychedelic house, and I'm trying to figure out what the blueprints were for this. I mean, there are very many examples. A lot of the dub versions of the early Chicago records were very psychedelic in nature, and how they were kind of swirling, panning, ricocheting off of each other. All these sounds were ricocheting off each other. These sparse, dubbed out drum machine workouts and excursions. Stuff by Marcus Mix. Obviously, Future and Acid House. Acid House, by its very nature, is a very psychedelic type of music. And very much keeping in line with what we've been talking about. Up next, I'm going to play a new track by one of my favorite contemporary producers, Sweater on Polo. It's a track called Led Zeppelin. Now, this guy knows how to take you on a journey. It's a long track. I'm only going to play a bit of it because we're running out of time, but you should definitely check out his music. So here we go. If you're in Toronto, I highly recommend keeping your eyes locked on this guy's Instagram page. Maybe we'll both show up in this room here together and do something. I don't know. I can't believe an hour has flown by. I hope you enjoyed my class, if you're even watching this, whoever you are. And once again, this is Sweater on Polo with Led Zeppelin. What I'm holding up right now is not Sweater on Polo. That is the new record that I have just released called Street Theater. Thank you, Will. I just picked these up an hour before getting here. I pressed it locally with Microforum, which is a vinyl pressing plant in the west end of Toronto. I actually believe this Sweater on Polo record was pressed there too. So thank you to Microforum. It's interesting how a few years ago it was seemingly impossible to get a small run of vinyl records pressed in a reasonable time frame. For a reasonable price. It was impossible. There was a period of time, I think in 2021 or 2, where the wait time for a record to be pressed was almost a year, which is just annoying. And impossible to do business in that kind of circumstance if you're a record label or recording artist trying to press vinyl. So thank you to Microforum. They're able to turn things around pretty quickly, and it's amazing that it's local because, you know, we're keeping it local these days. So yes, Sweater on Polo. As good as it gets, really. And I'm about to play for the very first time. I haven't heard this record yet. I haven't heard a single test pressing, I haven't heard anything. So you're about to hear it participate in the maiden voyage for Tony Price's Street Theater, which is out now on Maximum Exposure. It's a track called Defender, which was very consciously an effort to create something that fit into this sort of cyberpunk continuum. I tried to make something that was quite trippy and psychedelic in its repetition, but also with a lot of crazy stuff going on with flanging and delay. I think. Made it a long time ago. But anyways, I've got these records. They're almost all gone, but if you want one, you can find one on Bandcamp, or if you're somewhere else in the world, you can hit up Rubadub out of Glasgow, who are distributing it. This was a fun hour. I've never done anything like this. I usually don't like to talk or look at myself. And I hope I didn't bore you. But yeah, I'm going to play 2 minutes of Defender by Tony Price, and then someone else is going to come in here and play a set. So I will see you soon. Thank you very much. Thank you to Will. Thank you to Chloe. Thank you to Toronto. And have a good night, even though it's still sunny outside. Have a good evening.